Okay. Now, to be clear, I don't have all the solutions here for the real valid problem, which is people getting dislike bombed for things that are no fault of their own. But I think there are at least possibly solutions.
Is this brigading?
Could you moderate? If you turned every dislike into a comment, for example, could you moderate those? Could you go through and you could say, you know, I removed this, and this, and then it comes off of your public dislike counter? Because that's the kind of thing that I don't think would affect tutorials, right? So I don't know.
If people can remove dislikes, how would it not affect tutorials?
Well, because I think a lot, I don't think, okay.
I don't agree. You don't have to turn off main power. Just be a man.
It wouldn't help with anything malicious. It might help with a bad guide for replacing a light switch because that person probably hardly knows how to use the YouTube dashboard. But
or they're just like really, it's the problem that we actually run into a lot where they could be just really good. Yeah. And so they don't have to worry about whatever thing.
And it wouldn't help with like some crypto scam or whatever else like that, where they're intentionally, they're intentionally trying to control dislikes. So I don't have a perfect solution. That much is very clear. You know, maybe you could make it so that there's a gating function. If this like hugely disproportionate number of dislikes piles up on a video in some amount of time, you could throttle it. So that's an example.
Right.
You could shadow ban users' ability to dislike videos. You could just outright, I mean, as it is, my understanding is you have to log in to dislike a video anyway. So you could remove all dislikes from banned accounts. You could monitor, again, this is something that I believe a company with the resources of Google could figure out. I think that you could monitor particularly hateful or destructive users and just shadow ban their dislikes across the entire site.
Yeah.
That's something that I believe could be done. So I'm not saying I have the solution. I am saying that there is one. And
where the dislikes, you're talking about dislike bombs. Is this brigading?
Yeah.
So like this is a creator or a member of some community.
Yeah, like let's say someone comes out as trans.
Sure.
For example.
Yeah.
And then some toxic subreddit is like,
oh, let's go dislike their video.
Let's go dislike the crap out of their video and make them feel bad in a vulnerable moment.
I guess that becomes
That's
more
the kind of thing we're talking about here.
I guess it becomes more difficult if it's from off-site because you were just referencing off-site.
Yeah, it comes off-site, but they can track that.
That's So
they know where the traffic's coming from.
If they're clicking a link from Reddit and it's like, no one disliked this video except for 100% of the people that clicked this link that came from this source. Yeah, they can try to figure that out. Maybe you can moderate the actions of brigading that gets spurred up by communities on YouTube itself. Maybe you can do more for the issue instead of just being like, people are using this wrong, so we're just going to take it out.
NH4x4 Tracker says you could make it a requirement to watch a certain portion of the video. This is actually something that I have pitched in the past. And I don't know how you would enforce that. I don't know how you would ensure that they're not bots. But what you would absolutely be doing is you would be increasing the barrier to entry to participate in these kinds of problems. So if that is actually the problem, I believe it is a solvable one. And I believe that it's one that YouTube could maybe say, okay, temporarily, we're going to remove the dislike counter while we engineer a solution to this. I would accept that.
Sure.
But it's a tool, right? Dislikes are a tool. They're a tool that I use as a creator. I use it to monitor sentiment on other creators' videos or topics.
And your own.
Hey, I have access to my own still, right?
Right.
So I could look at,
I think people aren't going to click dislike as much, though, if they don't see it.
Austin worked with Facebook or something like that. Let's say I don't know if Austin's worked with Facebook lately.
Hi, Austin.
You know, what's the sentiment? I can take the temperature of the community. I can be like, okay, how big of a deal is it going to be if I were to take a Facebook sponsorship, right? Like, so obviously I've picked an intentionally controversial company right now, but that's a way that we've used it in the past. It's like, you know, hey, these guys had a sketchy past, but it looks like they've turned over a new leaf and they're treating their customers better. Okay, here's a creator that just took a sponsorship from them. Are they getting roasted? And I could go down and I could read comments for days, but it's nice to be able to do a quick temperature check. So this is a tool that I use as a creator, and it's a tool that I use as a consumer of content online as well. Usually in the way that you're describing it, to avoid wasting my time with content that is going to end up misleading me, whether it's unintentionally, like the expert electrician who doesn't feel like he has to turn off the mains power, or whether it's intentionally with like a cryptocurrency spam or an attempt to steal my credentials.
There's lots
some
of
kind of phishing scam.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem, is if YouTube invested all this engineering that they did into testing dislike removal, into figuring out how to remove the spam fake content from their site, man, that probably would have been a better use of time, I think. So it's this tool, and tools can be used for harm, right? This is something that I was talking about in a Discord with some other creators, where I basically went like, look, tools can be used for harm, but that doesn't mean that they're a bad tool.
Hammers are a good tool, but you can't guarantee it's going to hit a nail.
No, you can't. So instead of throwing away our hammer, what we've decided, what we should be doing is building a safer hammer.
Yeah.
Sure. And I absolutely think that with the talent and intelligence of the team at YouTube, that this is something that they could do. Now I want to talk about, really for me, one of the biggest problems with this entire move, and in my opinion, what I think is, and take this for the ignorant speech that it is, I think the far bigger reason for this is that YouTube dislikes have turned into a negative PR problem for the platform.
Not just the platform, but a lot of other companies as well. If you actually think about the most communally well-known things that have been disliked, they're all corporate things.
Not all. Rebecca Black Friday,
mostly...
for example.
Okay, that's fair.
Is an example of community dislike bombing someone into insecurity. So let's not pretend these things haven't happened. I saw someone in the chat that's like, no, that doesn't happen. Yes, it does.
That's a good example.
So that conversation can end now. It does happen. But I believe there are better solutions that don't have to completely take away this useful tool.
Sure. But I think like the Reddit comment from back in the day, that was talking about how with Battlefront, I think it was Battlefront 2, and I think it was talking about how if you would have to put like thousands of hours into the game to unlock every item or something if you didn't want to pay to buy things. I don't remember exactly what it was.
There was a big World of Warships controversy that was very similar, where they ended up getting disliked because their holiday thing was like physically impossible to actually complete.
I remember that. Yeah. So like these things, tons of dislikes, makes them popular because their amount of dislikes. There's a lot of different corporate videos on YouTube that are either extremely out of touch or
like the Terry Crews Amazon commercial that just went up. That's a perfect example of something that rightly is being mocked internet wide.
Lots of things that Blizzard has ever put in video form. Lots of things from gaming companies in general, to be completely honest. It's not always a good look for companies, and it is often talked about. Like a news thing that I fairly often get in my feed is like so-and-so announcement video from so-and-so company is getting shreked by dislikes. And then I'll go watch it to figure out why people hate it so much, and then I immediately understand. And it's like, okay, cool, and then I move on.
And this is something that could be done in the comments, but it's a waste of time.
And modern people's usage of computers, you've got seconds. You've got very, very minute amounts of time.
So it's very clear that YouTube's goal is to obfuscate this data. They want to hide this data from you. Why? The answer is pretty obvious: more watch time. So you have to actually watch the content in order to figure out. So I can understand from YouTube's perspective why they might look at their data from their trials for this and go, well, everything is fine. Because from their perspective, I guess everything is fine if there's more watch time, and there might even be more viewer satisfaction. Because if you plugged the average viewer in front of a YouTube browser window and we're like, okay, yeah, do your like normal thing. They're going to go and they're going to watch, clips from The Late Show, or they'll go and check out whatever the latest thing Mr. Beast uploaded is. They're going to look at a lot of content for which the dislike counter is not relevant.
Yeah.
And if anything, is probably
really positive.
Is probably destructive. Like it's probably good content that somebody disagrees with, and they're going to kind of go, oh yeah, this is actually a better experience. But because of that, they're ruining it for the people who actually need it. And I want to say, again, a type of PR disaster that, in my opinion, dislikes have A, caused, but B, enabled YouTube to become a better platform are maybe not common, but they absolutely occur.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, one of the most disliked videos on the platform. I forget which one of them it was. I'm so sorry. You're definitely different people, but one of the Paul brothers. Yeah, the Suicide Forest video.
Yeah.
Okay, this is something we didn't really touch on at the time because it was fairly obvious that was a spectacularly stupid thing to do. One of the ways that media coverage of that particular event was able to snowball was based on there's a lot of community backlash, which can be measured through dislikes. By allowing people to express their displeasure with something that a creator has done, YouTube enables communication to be not just two-way, right? They enable the viewers to communicate with each other. And I don't want to hear it, right? When YouTube comes back to, that's right too. When YouTube comes back and says, well, yeah, but they can communicate with each other in the comments. You guys are constantly hiding the comments farther and farther, particularly on mobile.
Oh, yeah.
You are constantly hiding the comments under more and more layers of crap that I have to click on or scroll through. So I don't want to hear it, right? Dislikes are one of the ways that the community can punish and can brigade in a way that is justified behavior that is unacceptable. It's a really important tool. It is one of the few levers that a viewer community can pull to say, we are united in absolutely hating what you just did. And one of the things that I'm not going to get into...
Which can be helpful sometimes. I mean, Logan Paul got 60 million views on his I'm Sorry video.
I don't want to get into YouTuber apology videos right now. That's really not the point. But what I do want to talk about is when the mistake is not just an error in judgment. I would say that the Suicide Forest video was an egregious error in judgment, but I don't think that it was... I think it was impulsive and stupid. I don't think it was malicious. I don't think it was, sitting there the night before trying to brainstorm the most disrespectful thing you could possibly do and then going and making a video about it the next day. I really don't think it was about that. But let's talk about when a creator does something that is legitimately harmful. And I don't want to get into any names here because it's just not, it's not on brand for me. I'm not a YouTube drama creator. I want no part of it. But let's talk about when creators, for example, abuse their position to take advantage of a minor, which is something that has been a problem.
Yeah, multiple times.
Dislike bombing, dislike brigading is one of the ways that a viewer community can signal, not just to the creator, but to the entire world that they do not stand with that half-assed apology. Or with this, weak attempt to be like, I'm back and everything's fine, or whatever it is.
And that's where it's not even, you're not even really like sending a command to your army to like brigade this person's video. You're pointing out that it's egregiously horrible and people are overwhelmingly agreeing with you, which is kind of its own thing, but is going to look exactly the same.
Hayuro says removing dislikes also makes bot or botted likes less easy to notice. That is true. If you have like a 99.8% like to dislike ratio, that is something that sets off a red flag for me. If I'm looking at something like that. Faustini says, why would they just not let the creators decide if they want public dislikes on their channel? So they could do that. The issue with that is that, particularly for scammers, I don't think that's a good solution because they'll be savvy enough to just hide their dislikes publicly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like those are the main issues for me. are the potentially harmful videos that will not have as obvious warnings on them. And, you know, back to comments not being good enough. I mean, think about the kinds of scams you read. Like, do you read about, I don't know. I've clicked on them a few times. My Google News feed is often full of like, here's a scam that, you know, this senior citizen fell for, and they lost their entire life savings to someone who phished their credentials or whatever the case may be.
YouTube channels and stuff about it before, but
like
way too much.
Do not expect a non-tech savvy user to navigate their way through the hidden layers on top of a comment section to figure out that some guide to fixing their internet connection isn't just a phishing scam. One of the ways we can defend these people is by disliking the crap out of these videos. And I think that a lot of people have said, well, YouTube already has a solution. You can disable ratings on your videos. But I think that even a below average computer user knows that if the ratings are disabled, that's probably a bad sign. So you can't point at that as a solution for creators, because I think that would really hurt their ability to reach a broader audience. I will click off a video pretty quickly if I see ratings outright disabled. So to me, it's more a question of moderation and less a question of should they be disabled outright. Because if our solution is, well, people should just disable them, then YouTube made the right move. They already did it. They disabled them. And if you disable them for everybody, then you're not singling anybody out, right? So I understand the rationale. I understand why they did it. They are just harming the community's ability to communicate, and they are harming the viewer's ability to quickly and easily filter out misleading or potentially dangerous content. That is an enormous problem, and one that, quite frankly, if YouTube comes to me and says, oh yeah, we totally found that this was 100% fine, I call bullshit. You did not. I promise you did not, because you didn't do this yet, and scammers didn't go, oh, this is great.
This is awesome. Yeah.
And start doubling down on their strategy now that they know that you can't dislike bomb them out of existence anymore. Like, we haven't seen the impact yet. You can't study the effect of something you haven't done. Okay, I think I'm all.
It's good. I think people should be worked up about this kind of stuff because, as we've seen, sometimes if part of the community is upset about something, it can be a little bit difficult to, reach through the noise. And YouTube's got one heck of a community. So
I have a call.
Making a noise is good.
On Tuesday.
About this or just in general?
I will be speaking to the product manager who worked on this.
Cool.
I feel like I need to kind of gather my thoughts even a little more than I did now and make sure that I'm in a good headspace. I don't think that what I'm saying is going to change anything.
I doubt it.
I doubt it too. The fact that they've been working on this for a year means that ultimately I don't think my voice matters in all of this, but the fact that they're at least giving me an opportunity to talk about it, I feel like it would be irresponsible for me to not present my side and explain why it's really important to me and why I would love for us to find another solution. And, like I said, I would be happy if YouTube came in and said, okay, look, we're going to turn it off for 6 months while we dev something better. I'd be like, okay, now we're compromising. Now we're working together on this instead of you just taking something that is really valuable to me because it's harming someone else. I don't want someone else to be harmed. 100%.
Yeah.
And again, the people denying that that's happening, you're living in a bubble.
Yeah.
It happens.
It's definitely a thing.
It's 100% a thing. I mean, you got to understand, like, I wasn't always a 10 million subscriber creator, right? I've seen it. I've done something totally innocuous, like having kind of a high-pitched voice and been attacked for it.
For years.
For years, actually.
Yeah.
Like,
and some other stuff, which was all BS. Like, it used to actually, to backline us up, it used to kind of cover LTT comment sections. Like, it was actually pretty intense.
And so
really stupid.
So, like, I get it, and I understand that we have to make the platform a safer place. Not because, people can't stand to have their feelings hurt or whatever, but because we want it to be a vibrant and growing community. We want utterly unique content to proliferate on the channel because otherwise it's going to stagnate. Like, it is in my best interest for YouTube to have as many creators telling as many totally different stories as possible, because that rising tide is going to lift all ships. I'm into it. I think there's a better solution.
Yeah.